Well, hello, everyone. Thank you for tuning in to technically the second edition, but week one edition of the Colts on Kirkwood podcast. I am your host once again for today, Owen Graham, joined by my lovely colleagues, Peter Miller, and Jack Rizzo. Guys, what a week one it was. We kind of ended episode one on maybe a negative side towards the Colts with some not so favorable record predictions, and they kind of showed us up week one. General thoughts for anyone who wants to go first.
I think Daniel Jones might have heard what we were talking about and took that really, really personally. I think we were talking about it a little bit earlier, Jack, but this was a really big surprise to me. Not that the Dolphins are a horrible team or anything, but the Colts come out and dominate the way that they did, score on all their offensive drives. I mean, I don't think anybody saw that coming. We certainly didn't see that coming. So a really pleasant surprise, I guess.
Yeah, I agree. No, did not see that coming at all. I actually did pick the Colts to win the game because I thought they were the better team, but I didn't pick them to win by 25, nor did I expect them to literally score on every single one of their drives in this game. They dominated this game, start to finish, completely. Not really much more to say. I mean, Peter said the Dolphins they're obviously not a good team, but I didn't think they were that bad.
Yeah, I mean, I think we had to take a little bit of a judgment call on maybe their 2024 record because, I mean, it was decent. I think it was 8-9. But, they lost a lot of people in the process. Obviously, the big move with Jalen Ramsey and the swap they had there with Green Bay. But, outside of that, it really didn't think like Miami was going to come out that flat coming into the game. And then you have all your offensive weapons healthy. Tyreek Hill was fine. Devon Achane was fine. Tight end was really banged up. Darren Waller was listed as tight end 1, and then he, I think, didn't end up playing due to an illness. So, I mean, I'll say this. I think Miami is not going to be good this year. I mean, watching that first game, I don't know, especially with how Tua looked. I thought, he's supposed to be this guy that's going to improve every year, and it looks like he kind of just got worse. But at the same time, Miami did take a hit on the offensive line during that game, which, also tells a little bit of the story. But like we said, in staying on the more positive side for Indianapolis, they looked solid, sharp. And like you mentioned, Peter, scored on all 7 possessions. It was the first time since 1978 that has happened in the NFL. Who would have thought it would have been Daniel Jones leading the Indianapolis Colts in that situation? But 33-8, the final score inside of Lucas Oil Stadium, and it's the first Week 1 win for Indy in 12 years. It was bound to happen at some point, but they needed that one at some point.
I think the timing for this one is just so perfect too, with being a first game without Jim Irsay, obviously having passed away this past May, the age of 65. Team wanted to honor him. Shane Steichen just spoke to the media earlier today, said that they decided to run out as a team instead of do individual introductions as a tribute to Mr. Irsay. It was his team. Clearly he was watching down from up in the sky into Lucas Oil Stadium. Just a great way to kick off, a new era of ownership under the girls.
Yeah, and it was kind of poetic. I think they said in an Instagram post following the game, it was like the roof was open so we could watch. And I think they did everything great during halftime. I don't know if you guys had the chance to see it, but Ring of Honor members came back. Of course, Peyton Manning was there, Reggie Wayne, Edgerrin James, et cetera, et cetera. And Manning had a really, really good speech after the little tribute video for Jim Irsay, and then one of the daughters spoke as well. So perfect wrap up to, what was ultimately a really good day in football just for Indianapolis in general. Jack, what do you think?
Yeah, I totally agree. Jim Irsay obviously was a controversial figure. I think we can all agree on that. But at the end of the day, he loved the city of Indianapolis and he loved the Colts. He did so much for the fan base. Every Colts player loved Jim Irsay. I don't think there was one who didn't. They tell all these great stories about Jim Irsay. And there's a reason that a lot of the Colts' best players since moving to Indianapolis are homegrown players. They're drafted in Indy and they stay in Indy. And I think it's part of the reason because Jim Irsay treats these Colts players and how he treats their families. And as you said, the roof was open so he could watch from above the sky. And Peyton Manning's speech was very touching. He's just a good speaker in general.
Yeah.
He's a great guy. And it was great to see him back in Lucas Oil. It feels like it's been a while since we've seen him at Lucas Oil. And he might be there next week, too, for the Manning Bowl. We'll have to see.
Who knows?
And yeah, I will say, I think I like the fact that Carlie was on the sidelines during this game and not up at the owner's booth. It seems like she's going to be very involved with this team, which is something that Jim Irsay wasn't really involved as much with the Colts over the last couple of years. He was in the picture, but he wasn't the main guy, I feel like. And Carlie also ran the field before the game, which I thought was pretty funny too.
Really? I did not see that.
I saw the video of that, so yeah.
That's great. But yeah, like we said, just a good day in football. I mean, how can you hate Peyton Manning? Let's be real. If you were a Colts fan or not, like you can't hate on Peyton Manning. But turning the page to more of the game specifically, and I think the first thing we touched on in our episode last week, and the first thing we have to touch on, Daniel Jones. I mean, I don't know if it's just this is a system for him to thrive in, or just a new era and a new opportunity for him. But 22 for 29, 272 yards, 2 touchdowns, no interceptions. 2 rushing touchdowns on some QB sneaks, but I mean, still two more touchdowns on that. I mean, what are your guys' reactions? I mean, great game from him.
I mean, I think just the perfect redemption for him,
Yeah,
right?
Absolutely.
Things obviously went downhill really fast in New York. Goes to Minnesota, kind of gives himself that reset, earns him a prove-it opportunity, gets a 1-year contract, and it's one game, so let's not get too ahead of ourselves here. But he looked really, really, really good for the Colts. One of the things that I really noticed that's not going to show up on the stat sheet is this offense was on schedule. Mm-hmm. There were no really big mental mistakes or missed throws on open receivers or drops or anything like that kept the offense behind the sticks. And Daniel Jones being able to facilitate that's something that they just haven't had past couple of years, really since Phillip Rivers.
Yeah.
So being able to stay on schedule, not only did that lead to consistency and momentum, but it's what resulted in 33 points going up on the board.
Yeah. Jack, what do you think?
Yeah, I think it's pretty telling with the way the Giants played yesterday about maybe it wasn't Daniel Jones' fault for the problems he had in New York for the first 6 years of his career. The Giants looked just awful yesterday. Their O-line was terrible. I wonder, I'm not going to disrespect Shane Steichen or whatever, but I wonder if the short time Daniel Jones spent in Minnesota at the end of last year maybe had an impact on the way he played in week 1. Kevin O'Connell's a wizard. He's a Sean McVay disciple. I'm not scared to call him one of maybe the 3 best head coaches in the league right now with the way the Vikings have played since he got there. And as Peter said, it was really just perfection from the offense yesterday. They avoided the mental mistakes, which is something they did in basically every game last year. I mean, you talk about the A.D. Mitchell pick 6 in the Broncos game, or the Jonathan Taylor fumble in the same game, or just them being stupid at times last year. They looked really, really sharp yesterday. Daniel Jones spread the ball out really well. Took his checkdowns when he wanted to, but also pushed the ball downfield. Had a beautiful throw to Alec Pierce to open up the second half. The touch pass to Michael Pittman was a beautiful throw in the end zone. And when Daniel Jones used his legs, he used them well. Those 2 rushing touchdowns, and overall commanded the offense, made checks at the line if he didn't like what he saw from the Miami defense, and overall just a perfect game plan by Jones and by Shane Steichen.
Only 4 penalties on the day for the Colts and only 45 yards given up from those. I think, like you guys have mentioned, very polished, and that's kind of shocking to see, but also it kind of makes sense because you look at the experience on this team outside of Daniel Jones and how Shane Steichen likes to run his offense. They've had a few years to kind of get that down pat. And I think Daniel Jones only took 1 sack, if I remember that correctly, 1 sack on the day. I think that it speaks to, maybe some of the mobility concerns people had about Daniel Jones. He escaped the pocket really well, and actually it was that 1st and 30 situation, I believe, is in the second half where They got all the way back into their own territory, and Daniel Jones kicked off that 1st and 30 with a 15-yard scramble. It was either that same play or a play later where penalty gets called on Miami, and that turns into another scoring drive. So, I mean, plays like that is something that, you may have could have had with Richardson, but at the same time to, lead the offense in those situations, escape the pocket, and still, make plays downfield with accuracy, I think is a big turnaround that Daniel Jones could bring for this team. Like we said, it's still week 1. And we have to obviously take a lot of this with a grain of salt because it's, it could continue the entire season. It could, the train could go well off the tracks here in week 2 or 3, but, who knows? Another good positive, I think was Tyler Warren. I got to give my man some props. First play they ran, went to him. And in fact, that first drive, I think he got 3 or 4 touches. And just looked like an NFL vet in his first game. I picked him for Offensive Rookie of the Year. I stand by that with how he looked. That's my guy. Anyone else you want to highlight during that game, or if you want to touch on Tyler Warren, go for it. But
no, I want to keep going with Tyler Warren.
Yeah.
I mean, like you said, it doesn't look like he's a rookie at all. 7 catches for 76 yards. The last time the Colts had a tight end put up those numbers in a single game, does anyone have any guesses?
Dallas Clark, probably.
I was going to say Jack Doyle, but I don't know if he had that many catches.
2022, that lost season, Jelani Woods' lone season with the Colts, obviously.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Oh, it must have been the Monday night game against Pittsburgh.
Boom.
Oh, okay.
There you go.
Off the dome.
Off the dome.
What would we do without Jack?
Yeah, but I mean that tight end impact is what the Colts were maybe hoping they were getting out of Woods. Super athletic guy, 3rd round pick. A lot of high expectations for him. Obviously, it didn't work out because of injuries, but now you get to spend a 1st round pick on someone just as athletic and probably even more impactful. I mean, shoot, we saw him take a fullback handoff.
Yep, I was waiting for it.
In a short down situation. It just shows the Colts are going to use him almost pretty similar to the way he was used at Penn State and kind of that jack of all trades role. That versatility is only going to make him just get better and better and better. This could not have been a better sort of jumping off point for Tyler Warren, I don't think. And just the eye test showed too that just having him out on the field gives you that extra receiver that the Colts just haven't had.
Right.
With these past couple of years, you've had Michael Pittman and Josh Downs, who've been, sort of your reliable targets. Then, last year, Alec Pierce, obviously your deep guy. Connection wasn't really there with Anthony Richardson and A.D. Mitchell. But Tyler Warren's impact was just so clear. And that's, like you said, Owen, probably Offensive Rookie of the Year for the Colts, definitely. I mean, I don't think it's too crazy.
You could throw him in.
You could throw him into the... It's again, we're going to keep
first
hitting
game.
this today. It's the first game. So I got to temper expectations a little bit. But, this was, just an incredible game. I think Colts fans could be completely pleased with what they got from Tyler Warren yesterday.
Yep. Jack, go ahead.
Yeah. Well, I will say this. This is going to be a very corny analogy, but Tyler Warren to me is a Dan Campbell type of football player. And there's not many players outside of the Detroit Lions that I would classify as Dan Campbell type of football players. But Tyler Warren's a guy, if you watch him speak to the media, it seems like the only thing he cares about is playing football. He does not take crap from anybody. He just wants to go out there and play football. He lets his play do all the talk. Don't tell this Jalen Ramsey, but but he really had himself a game yesterday, and he does everything for this offense. He catches the ball, he blocks well. You can use him in any spot. We almost never see this much versatility out of a tight end, but it was just clear yesterday how much he raised the floor of this offense, and he also raised the ceiling of the offense because 7 catches for 76 yards. Those are elite numbers for a tight end. Those are Trey McBride, Brock Bowers type of numbers if he's going to put those up every week. And you can just tell the impact that Tyler Warren is going to have on this team and on this offense.
Yeah, and something to also keep in mind, and something that he actually really shined in, his run blocking also. You see some of his reps, and he takes on, those really talented linebackers, those NFL vets, and he's handling them pretty well. And I guess that's a perfect segue into another thing that I wanted to highlight it on. I mean, the gaps were there for Jonathan Taylor and DJ Giddens. And I think that's something we may have been a little hesitant about last week as well, as how, that maybe younger group of O-line players was going to perform. But, Taylor had plenty of opportunities. DJ Giddens in the second half also looked, pretty similar when you talk about the gaps and hitting those gaps and runs after contact as well, or yards after contact, I should say. Really efficient game for them. Maybe not going to be the telltale story. I think we can all agree that Daniel Jones's play was kind of the big picture here, but very complimentary football, and that's something you definitely want to see as well.
Yeah, I mean, Matt Gonzalez and Tanner Bortolini stepped into big shoes to fill.
Yeah.
I mean, Ryan Kelly's been a vested veteran in the league for a while, been Mr. Consistent for the Colts. Will Fry's one of the, got a big contract for a reason from the Vikings. So I think, like you said, Owen, we were maybe a little bit hesitant that there might be at least some growing pains.
Mm-hmm.
But, I mean, it seems like they've been doing this for a long time, the way that some of these lanes opened up for Taylor and Giddens. Again, something I think to get excited about. Matt Gonzalez, I thought, was really, really good in particular on that right side, especially moving into a new position. He was kind of their swing tackle last year. Now it's just full-time right guard. So, yeah, I mean, just, again, kind of like with Warren, it's a really good jumping-off point for Bortolini and Gonzalez, and they're only going to get more comfortable with more time, too. And once they get, I guess, more used to the way Taylor and Giddens move behind them, I mean, I think this run game can take off.
Yeah, you bring up a good point with, the experience that they had last year. Just think about also the players that they played behind last year, the mentorship, stuff like that. Jack, anything you want to add on?
Yeah, I will say, so Tony Sperano Jr., the Colts O-line coach, used to be the assistant O-line coach with the New York Giants. And obviously, I live like 5 minutes away from MetLife Stadium, so I've met a couple of Giant players before. And after the Colts hired Tony Sperano, I asked a couple of them what he was like on the team, because some of the players were like O-linemen, whatever, and they only had positive things to say about Tony. He was really had that kind of impact. He was there with the Giants the year they made the playoffs. One year their O-line wasn't actually like the worst in the league. And he really put on a masterclass yesterday. As you said, Owen, only one sack allowed on Daniel Jones. Jonathan Taylor, DJ Giddens combined to rush for over 100 yards. The team itself over 150 yards. They basically did whatever they wanted on the ground. I mean, you go back to this play in the second half. I think it was 23-0. The Colts had like 4th and 2 on the Miami 45, and it was just a straight handoff from Daniel Jones to DJ Giddens, and the hole was absolutely wide open. I think they ran right through the B gap. There was nobody there, and it just showed the perfect play call, the perfect execution. And as Peter said, the two young guys were really impressive. They had 2 of the highest pass blocking grades on the O-line this week. I think Braden Smith actually had the lowest pass blocking grade this week. But as I said on the first show, I think the Colts' success this season is going to heavily depend on the O-line. And if they play the way they did last week, the Colts have a chance to compete in the AFC South this year.
It's a really talented Miami defensive front as well. With plenty of, notable names. Of course, the main ones, Bradley Chubb, Chop Robinson, Matthew Judon in there as well. Those are more edge guys, but still. Benito Jones, Zach Sealer, also really notable guys. But just, overall great showing on the offense. And, we can talk all we want about the offense, but you can make a debate that the defense could have had a better game.
I would say so.
Yeah, and first look we got at Lou Anarumo's scheme and the kind of the personnel pairing with that. And, what a game that defense had. Forced Tua into uncomfortable situations from the get-go. And that led to that first pick and an amazing, amazing celebration by Cam Bynum. I have to give it to him. I don't know what it was based off of. A lot of people were saying it was a dolphin out of water, which I think was...
Looked like he was doing the worm on his back.
He was doing the worm on his back. But a dolphin out of the water, I think, is a great thing to say. But anyways, I mean, like Jack, you kind of just mentioned, like, very, very well could have had a better game than the offense did.
Yeah, they did. I'll say that right now. The Colts offense scored on every drive. They had a couple of drives, though, that they weren't able to finish, but they got field goals, so it's all good. I mean, they had 17 points off of turnovers. That was the difference in this game. I said that whoever won the turnover battle was going to win the game. Colts had forced 3 turnovers, Dolphins 0. Lou Anarumo is a great defensive coordinator. He was just stuck with an absolutely horrendous defense last year, and that's more the Bengals front office, which might be the worst front office in the league, if we're being honest here. I mean, we've talked about the Vikings a lot on this podcast so far for whatever reason, but I thought I was watching the Vikings defense yesterday because it kind of looked like the Brian Flores defense we saw last year with all the disguises that Lou Anarumo showed. You know, he would put 7 guys right up on the Miami O-line, but sometimes he would only rush 3 or 4 of them. I mean, Peter and I were talking about this before, but there were several times in the game yesterday where the Colts would drop both defensive ends in coverage, and they would rush 3 defensive tackles and 1 of their outside linebackers. I mean, Latu had an interception yesterday in coverage. It was a pretty athletic play, too, for a 6'5" defensive end who's not really known for his coverage skills. But I will say, you know, obviously all the newcomers had their moments, but I think the most impressive player on defense yesterday was Kenny Moore. You talk about him now having a great group of defensive backs surrounding him. I think this could easily be a career year for Kenny Moore. Had the strip sack yesterday on Tua early in the first quarter. Had a couple other nice pass breakups. He's going to be able to stick to what he does best now and just be in the slot. As long as the corner room stays healthy, which, we might talk about that in a second with some of the injuries the Colts have there. But it was an absolute masterclass yesterday from Lou Anarumo. And I do not know a time we saw Tua Tagovailoa look that lost in a game.
Yeah, there were some points it's the fourth quarter, but the fourth quarter is really when he showed that he had any sort of comfortability. And frankly, Colts definitely should have held the Dolphins on that TD drive, especially in that 4th and long or 4th and goal, and had 2 or 3 good attempts to tackle Achane, and he still found a way in the end zone. Great play by him, but it definitely could have been a shutout, I should say. But yeah, Jack, you bring up a good point with Kenny Moore. That's not the guy I would have gone to, but like you said, with how deep and talented the defensive back room is now, that takes a lot of the pressure off of him, and especially with the new scheme that used a lot of Mike Hilton last year with the Bengals. That is a position where Lou Anarumo is going to, highlight a lot, but that's also going to be a position where he's put into a position to succeed. A lot of position words, but it was just a great showing overall, and I think it all started with that first interception, and they had all the momentum moving forward. Peter, anything you want to add?
Yeah, I mean, talk about a breath of fresh air defensively from something that was so stale and so boring last year with Gus Bradley. Lou Anarumo, I mean, he was, at times, it just seemed like he was out there having fun, just like messing with Tua's head. Yeah. And like both of you mentioned, Tua didn't look comfortable really at all. I can't remember the last time a Colts defense made a quarterback feel uncomfortable. And Xavier Howard had a good quote after the game that they knew if they took away Tua's first read, he was going to enter panic mode. Yep. And it seemed like that happened, almost just about every play. It's like, again, it's what led to the 3 turnovers, especially the first one. Like, Tua doesn't get the read he wants, and then makes maybe a panic decision, sails his throw. Cam Bynum's right there, and that's really where the Colts just took over and went down, scored, got those points off turnovers. I believe that was a touchdown drive. But yeah, this was, just so much fun to watch. Like Jack and I we were talking about just the creativity, and with the coverage looks and the disguises and the different coverages, it's so much more fun to watch, I think. And holding guys like Tyreek Hill and Jalen Waddle to both under 40 yards receiving, 2 guys who are extremely explosive, what one play they can change a game. I think, it's really complete performance all around by the unit. I'm really excited to see what they do going forward.
Yeah, and part of those disguises where I think was a really, the impactful plays that you mentioned, Jack, was the strip sack from Kenny Moore. But also, if you guys saw that play with Nick Cross coming off the edge, completely unmarked and just blew Tua up. he like even makes an effort at just like maybe hitting the ball out, that's another turnover. But he just hit Tua as hard as he
It's
could.
the advantage of being a strong safety full time now. You can do that more.
Yep, exactly. That's the position Nick Cross is going to thrive in a little bit more. And like you said, Jack, those opportunities are probably going to come a lot more into the season if, the success of the scheme that Lou Anarumo is putting in is going to continue. But, I don't think there's, much to really touch on the defense more because of just there's not really a lot of notes that you can give them outside of, that one play in the fourth quarter where they give up that touchdown and a 2-point conversion. But, that was a busted play from the start anyway. Tua was looking left the entire way, checked down to Devon Achane, and Achane just makes a good play. So overall, great showing from the Colts defense. We kind of look ahead to week 2 versus Denver, which was Denver didn't come out with the best performance in week 1. I actually don't know the final score at the top of my head.
20-12.
20-12 against, that was the Titans, right?
The Titans.
It was. Well, half the Broncos didn't look good. The other half was dominant.
Yeah, it was that. Yeah, you guys probably got a better comment on this than I do because I did not watch the game of Denver. I'm sorry, I'm already, doing crap at my job, but I don't have the time to do scouting reports on every team. But, I think the first thing you immediately go to is, how can you build off a really good pressure game on Tua and try to get Bo Nix into some uncomfortable situations as well.
Yeah, I mean, the Broncos have invested a decent amount in their offensive line over the past few years, brought Mike McGlinchey in from San Francisco. Quinn Miners is one of the best interior linemen in football. So the protection's going to be there. And Bo Nix, I mean, didn't look like rookie Bo Nix yesterday. But, we know what he's able to do. He's Sean Payton's new Drew Brees. But, I think for this game in particular, it's more going to be about the Colts offense and what can Daniel Jones do against a significantly better secondary. Miami came in with a bunch of injuries this week. Don't have a super strong group of corners or safeties outside of Minkah Fitzpatrick to begin with. Broncos have Patrick Surtain is the reigning defensive player of the year, correct?
Yep.
Reigning defensive player of the year. A lot of, other good players. What's his name? Damari Mathis coming. Is he still? No.
Riley Moss is.
Riley Moss. Thank you.
Hufanga, safety.
Yeah. Again, another
Hufanga. Yeah.
That's that was a great season he had at San Francisco a few years ago, and just continuing to build off that.
Yeah. So now, going forwards for the Colts, looking into week 2, it's really going to be whether or not Daniel Jones can break down a better defense. We've said it a bunch already. Miami was just one game. It was week 1. Now you're probably getting bored of hearing it, but now is where we're getting to the point where, okay, we're going to be able to see more. Can Daniel Jones continue to build off of it, or is he going to be flustered by a better defense? That's really going to be more telling of what this Colts offense can be under Daniel Jones, I think.
Yeah. And I think you bring up a good point because that secondary is, significantly a different look than what Miami is bringing you. And, you can only rely on your security blankets so much, like those Tyler Warren's, second read options, those, Michael Pittman just fired him, make sure he has a catch. It didn't look like that in week 1, but, as that defense gets better, those, more pressure situations may start to increase. Jack, anything else you want to add?
Yeah. Well, Peter touched on the Broncos defense. They may, you know what? I'm not scared to say it. The Broncos have the best defense in the NFL right now. You talk about a group. The Broncos are the only team other than the Colts where I can actually name all 11 starters on their defense because of how good their defense is. Vance Joseph is going to be a candidate for assistant coach of the year. There's no doubt in my mind. They've got disruptors all over. Peter mentioned the secondary, which is obviously great, but the front seven is no slouch either. You've got Nick Bonino, who could have won Defensive Player of the Year last year as well. You've got Zach Allen. You've got John Franklin Myers, Dre Greenlaw, Alex Singleton, This Broncos defense is loaded, and it's going to be a much different look for Daniel Jones this week. It's going to be a question of, can the Colts be as consistent as they were last week? I don't think they're going to be able to run the ball as well as they did last week. Can the receivers continue to make plays? Will Daniel Jones be smart with the football? Will Shane Steichen have a better game plan for the Broncos defense? I think these are all reasonable questions that we have to ask ourselves because, as you guys said, the Dolphins really did not look like a good football team last week. Perhaps we'll touch on the Broncos offense in a bit, but I don't want to speak for too long, so I'll send it back to you, Owen.
I mean, no, you make a good point, and I think, it's tough to really come out and say what the Colts are going to do just because of how talented that defensive front is. But I do think they actually, barring that, they don't just completely blow up, I do think we see a little bit more of the run game than we did. We saw in that first drive, I don't know if Jonathan Taylor actually got a carry in that first drive. I don't think he did. I think it was all passing plays.
Very aggressive.
And it was very aggressive, which is good. And maybe that's something you want to come out with against Denver. But if it's going to present a bigger challenge to go against Denver. So I think if you're Indianapolis, getting too much Indiana football into my system. Sorry about that. But anyways, if you're Indianapolis, I think you have to maybe control the pace a little bit in your offensive possessions, maybe not go too aggressive. And I mean, at times they didn't really look aggressive against Miami per se, but I think you control the game and control the clock with your run game, and then, like we said, try to make plays with your defense and force Bo Nix into those uncomfortable situations to where you can control the game on that front. But scoring points is gonna be a tough task. But moving on to Broncos offense, didn't have the greatest showing. Bo Nix passed 40 times. He completed 25 of them, 1 touchdown and 2 interceptions. It's not crazy to say that Denver is putting a lot of chips in Bo Nix's game and how he can perform week after week. And so if like we said, if Colts can figure out a way to limit that as much as they can, then that's going to give them opportunity to win.
I think that's a good segue, Owen. I was just kind of thinking Bo Nix is a little bit like Tua in the sense where they both like to get the ball out quickly.
Mm-hmm.
Sean Payton's offense is kind of designed to get the ball out quickly. We saw that for years with Drew Brees. Saw it last year with Bo Nix. So I mean, it wouldn't surprise me to see maybe a similar game plan from Lou Anarumo's defense to try and take away those first reads and make Bo Nix second guess himself and rush into stupid decisions, and maybe you can get some turnovers off of that. But like Jack kind of mentioned earlier, the Colts secondary is dealing with some injuries already.
Yep.
Jalen Jones, hamstring. I believe it's the same hamstring that kept him out of training camp for a little bit. Charvarius Ward-Mooney, he self-reported concussion symptoms, so he's in the protocol right now. Who knows if he's going to be ready to go. That's going to present a challenge for the defense if they want to execute the same game plan that they did against Miami, at least.
Yeah, and it's not to say that, Denver has a crazy receiving core, but at the same time, just losing that week 1 starter that you were, talked about heavily in the offseason and gave a lot of praise to, he's out week 1, possibly after the first game, that mixes some things up on the defensive end of things. And then, like we said, Jackson is fresh out for trade. I don't think he's been here more than a month. So that's that new defensive back, could see some of those, slow to, I guess, make plays or maybe slow to do reads, stuff like that. Could see that start to creep in possibly.
Yeah, the depth's already being challenged. I mean, lost 2 rookies in training camp.
Yeah,
already. And, like you mentioned, Mekhi Blackman is fresh off a trade. He played a little bit yesterday, not a whole lot, some more rotational snaps. If he's thrust into a larger role, who knows? Maybe we'll see Jonathan Edwards getting more rotational time. Yeah. Who knows? So, yeah, I think that's going to be a big talking point this week, just the health of the Colts secondary.
Yep. Jack, anything else you want to add on the I guess the defensive side of things?
Yeah, I'll touch on the Broncos offense. Yeah, but I watched a lot of that game. Bo Nix did not look good. I don't want to discredit the Tennessee Titans defense, but I mean, other than like Jeffrey Simmons, I'm not really sure who else on that defense is supposed to be like that great. To be quite honest, I do feel bad for Cam Ward because in that game, his receivers were terrible, including Calvin Ridley, I should mention. But the Broncos offense was terrible against the Titans, other than a Cortland Sutton touchdown, which was set up by a really good field position because the Broncos defense, with how good they were, backed up the Titans at their own 1 yard line, and like a 50-yard run by RJ Harvey in the fourth quarter. They could not move the ball. And not only could they not move the ball, they turned the ball over 4 times. And now granted, one of those turnovers was on special teams, but they are very lucky that they gave the ball away 4 times and they managed to win this game. This is going to be another game where I think that whoever wins the turnover battle is going to win the game. I mean, we saw Bo Nix, the Colts played the Broncos last year, and keep in mind, this was against Gus Bradley's cover 3 scheme. Bo Nix really didn't look that great against the cover 3 scheme. I think he had 3 interceptions in the game. The Colts offense was just that bad that the Broncos still managed to win by like 18 points somehow. But I don't think that's going to be the same. I think the offense is going to be more consistent this time around. I think it's going to be a close game. But Bo Nix has got to get it together this week because you could get away with it against the Titans because I don't really think Brian Callahan's that good of a coach. You're not going to get away with it against the Colts. With the way they played in week 1, if the Broncos give it away 4 times, again, they're not going to win.
Yeah, and it's, hammering the nail continuously. And it's still just the week 1 matchup, but you saw the signs of the Colts defense and what they could be throughout the entire season. I don't expect this to be a season where it just all blows up. And it just doesn't seem that way, but it also doesn't look that way in week 1. Now, granted, Miami, whatever you want to say about them. But it's a really good opportunity. If you can go 2-0 at home and move on to, I'll get you
Tennessee.
That opponent in a second. At Tennessee, you go to LA, you start maybe 3-0, potentially going there. You get a really good challenge with Los Angeles' defense as well. Then, who knows? It's you have a really good opportunity these first few weeks to get a statement win against Denver, take care of business at Tennessee, to really gain some momentum and turn some heads in the process.
Yeah, and this game for the Colts is, Jack mentioned the game last year. It's a 31-13 loss in Denver. Just a a strange, bizarre game that, the wheels fell off for the Colts in that game, and that's when the wheels fell off for their season as well.
Yeah.
Nick Bonito had, one of the, more highlight-worthy plays of the year on, another infamously bad Colts play, double pass, second pass interception. I don't even know how that goes down in the scorebook. For a pick 6, Jonathan Taylor obviously uncharacteristically drops the ball at the 1 yard line. I think the Colts are going to have sort of like Daniel Jones did against the Dolphins. The Colts as a whole are going to have redemption on their minds.
Yeah.
Owen, like you mentioned, if you can get a win out of this, go to Tennessee. It's never easy to win on the road, no matter who the opponent is in the NFL. But a Titans team that's not expected to be super, super competitive. If you can go into Los Angeles against a Rams team, which, again, week 1 looked a little bit, I didn't get to see everything, but only 14-9 win over the Texans, a good Texans team, to their credit. But, if you can go 3-0 going into that game, that's probably really your first, after Denver, really significant test.
Yeah.
And by that point, it'll have played 4 games, and that's when you're going to really start to know what you have as a football team. That's going to be enough. When we're going to get out of that, it's only 1 game mindset, and we're going to be able to hammer these teams down for what they really are.
Yeah. Jack, anything to add?
Yeah, exactly. It's what Peter touched on. We talked about in the first episode that the Colts, if they want to win the division and make the playoffs, you have to get off to faster starts, right? Mm-hmm. I talked about they had started 0-2 7 of the last 15 years. Starting 1-0 is always a great sign. They hadn't started 1-0 in 12 years. I was in first grade the last time the Colts started a season 1-0. But yeah, you talk about if you win this game, you have a very real chance of starting the season 3-0. And most teams who start the season 3-0 make the playoffs. And you talk about the Texans did not look very good yesterday. Nope. The Rams are an awesome team. They are one of the best teams in the league, and I will stand by that. I'm probably the biggest Matthew Stafford fan of anybody in this universe, other than maybe Rams fans, and there's not many of them. but I'm concerned about their O-line. Their O-line looked terrible yesterday, and it is a terrible line. The Titans are not going to have a good season. It's Cam Ward and Jeffrey Simmons. I don't really know who else.
Take the world.
Yeah, Jaguars looked impressive yesterday, but it is the Carolina Panthers at the end of the day.
Yeah.
If the Colts can build a strong foundation early in the season, win these conference games, because these conference games are very important, especially if you're talking about wild card standings, because the AFC is a very strong conference. You win these conference games, you're giving yourself a great chance to make the playoffs if it comes down to a tiebreaker. And these are just important games. It's important games to build the culture. We talked about Shane Steichen's job being on the line. I don't know if his job's really going to be on the line if the Colts start 2-0 or 3-0, whatever. And it really gives you a strong foundation for the rest of the season and something to build on for this Colts team.
Yep, and the opportunity is there. I mean, like you mentioned, the opponents in just the AFC South, it's a gettable division, as it has been in the past years. Let's not get that, mixed up or anything, but with how the Colts looked and how they could look moving forward, they could find themselves well above and at the top of the AFC South. Finally, we'll wrap this up by, we always like predictions here. And so, give me your guys' week 2 predictions. Denver and Colts. Jack, do you want to start?
I'll start off. I am going to go with the Denver Broncos in this game simply because I think Sean Payton has the Colts number. I mean, we saw it in Super Bowl 44. We've seen it. We saw 62-7. I know that was 2011, but 62-7. It is, it is a real score that happened. I just think that the Broncos defense is too good. I love what I saw from the Colts offense this past Sunday, but they're going to really put a lot of pressure on Daniel Jones. You've got Nick Bonino, Zach Allen. I talked about all these guys already, but they had 6 sacks last week. I think they could have the same amount this week. We didn't really see Daniel Jones under pressure a lot this week.
No.
And Daniel Jones is not great under pressure. So I feel like the Broncos defense could definitely force some turnovers this week. The Colts are not going to score on every drive again next week. And I think that Sean Payton calling the offense, I mean, that's a future Hall of Fame coach calling an offense. I think if Charvarius Ward doesn't play, which he might not because it's very hard to clear the protocol in 6 days, Courtland Sutton could have a huge game against Indy's top outside corner, which is probably going to be Xavier Howard, and he hasn't played in a year and a half. Last year, first game in a year and a half. So I think the Broncos are going to, I feel like last week was a wake-up call, and this is a tough game for the Colts. The Broncos fans travel very well. I wouldn't be shocked if we see a lot of orange in the crowd on Sunday, and ultimately I think the Broncos are going to pull out the win here. But I think it's going to be a close game.
You got a score number if you had to give one?
Low-scoring game, very low-scoring game. I'll say 20-17 Denver Broncos.
Okay, so given Colts at least a close game.
Close game, but I think I trust Sean Payton over Shane Steichen.
Okay.
So give me the Broncos.
I respect that. Peter, what do you got?
Yeah, I agree. This is going to be a defensive game. I think Jack got that absolutely right. I'd be remiss if I sidetrack here. Have to shout out my hometown, New Canaan, Connecticut. Zach Allen, native of New Canaan, Connecticut. Go Rams. But yeah, I think defensive game. I think probably both. I mean, not both. The Colts offense is maybe going to come back down to earth a little bit against a better defense. I think we're going to see it. This game is going to be one in the trenches. I think particularly in pass protection, who can keep their guy upright more. 2 really good edge groups against 2 really good tackle groups. So whoever wins that battle, I think, is probably going to come out victorious. I think we can't overlook the fact, too, that this is a 4:05 game.
Yeah.
The Colts outside
That's a
of
whiteout.
Yeah. I mean, outside of a couple primetime games here and there, I don't remember the last time the Colts had a 4:05 start at home.
Yeah, it's one of those weird things to where, how Denver plays. Denver usually plays 4:05 games. So
yeah, so I think that's advantage Broncos there.
Yeah.
The Colts over the past few years and maybe this year already maybe gotten into that rhythm of those 1:00 games. So that definitely shouldn't be overlooked. I do think this is going to be one of those trademark Shane Steichen potentially comes down to the final drive games. The point spread right now is at 2.5.
In favor of Denver?
In favor of Denver.
Okay.
I think this. I mean, I like that spread. I think it's going to be a field goal game. I do like the Broncos to take it, though. I'll say 16-13.
16-13. Nice. Yeah, by the way, I don't know if you guys are knowledgeable about scoreagami, but Indianapolis and Miami, the score did happen before, but only one
Only
time.
once. I also
I think
saw
it was in
that, yeah.
2022. I
It's
don't
cool.
know, but kind of a unique scoreline there for the Colts for you guys last week. But either way, I'll be the minority. I'll take the Colts here. I think, we hear a lot about Broncos defense, and credit to them. They deserve it, obviously. But like I said, I think we see a little bit more of Jonathan Taylor. And I think if, the offensive line game, I think, like you said, Peter, it comes down to the trenches. If the Colts offensive line can hold up against Denver and those gaps that we saw week 1, open up even like halfway, we could see a Jonathan Taylor masterclass. And I think that there's a good opportunity for him to shine against Denver. It's not going to be a Daniel Jones comes out and scores 4 total touchdowns a game again. I don't think that'll happen. I will stick with, low scoring and, going to be a battle. Probably comes down to the last quarter, last possession of the game. I think Steichen proves some people wrong, though. I'll give Indianapolis the win 24-21. That's mine. All right, guys. Well, thank you all for tuning in to our second edition of the Colts on Kirkwood podcast. For Owen Graham, Peter Miller, and Jack Rizzo, we say so long, and we will be back here next week with, more Colts content.
See you next week.
See you next week.
See you guys.